Well, you've heard my thoughts on Boris Johnson, but let's look at Boris Johnson from the perspective of a man who knew him and who, in his role as Australia's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom for 4 years, had significant involvement with the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. George Brandis was a Liberal Senator for Queensland, and a good one, I might add, from 2000 to 2018, and was a Minister in the Howard, Abbott and Turnbull governments. He's a graduate of Magdalen College, Oxford, and replaced Alexander Downer as the High Commissioner to the UK in May 2018. Last month, he was appointed a professor in the practice of national security at the ANU, and George Brandis joins me. George, thank you for your time. A splendid piece of writing last week about Boris Johnson, but you opened by mentioning Lord Heseltine. Now, there's no surprise that Heseltine was dancing on Boris's grave. He was also instrumental, wasn't he, in bringing down Margaret Thatcher?
Well, he was. I mean, Michael Heseltine's a very old political warhorse from way back
Yes.
in the 1970s. And he was a very, very ardent advocate of Britain remaining in the EU. And there was, and I think you pointed this out in your editorial, there is a subtext here of those who got Boris Johnson in the end, that a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it was resentment of the role he played in masterminding the Leave campaign, and then as Prime Minister in bringing about Brexit in 2020.
Yes, I made the point in those comments just before that you've heard that there's not a lot of objectivity in this stuff. I mean, given that 75% of the MPs at Westminster supported Remain, and as I said, 95% of Labor MPs backed Remain, isn't it a fact that many of those people have never forgiven Boris? Now, you've said if the ultimate test, and this was a magnificent point, of the significance of a political leader is the extent to which they change their nation's history, you said, then Johnson was, without question, the most important British Prime Minister since Thatcher. Just amplify that point, please, George.
Well, I make that point for one very simple reason. The most important event that has happened in British history in the certainly last 50 years, almost since Britain decided to go into what was then the European Economic Community in 1973, was Brexit. And Brexit would not have happened without Boris Johnson. In 2016, he was the face and the leader of the Leave campaign. Most people, including the then Prime Minister David Cameron, almost took it for granted that the British people would, from their point of view, see sense and decide to stay. Boris and a relatively small number of senior Tory politicians took a different view, and Boris was the face of the Leave campaign, and the vote to leave was a pretty narrow run thing. 51.9% in the end voted to leave. Then, fast forward a few years later, Boris is Prime Minister. He replaces Theresa May. Theresa May, who I might say is a very good person, a very good woman, but was completely incapable of dealing with the complexities of getting out of Brexit. And she had a hostile parliament that she just couldn't get her legislation through. Boris replaced her 3 years ago. There was a general election held in December of that year, December 2019, that gave him a thumping majority, an 80-seat majority. And he then took control of the negotiation with the EU and steered Britain out of Brexit, out of Europe, and brought Brexit to fulfilment. In fact, his election slogan in 2019 was a brilliant and simple election slogan: "Get Brexit done." Well, he got Brexit done. And as the principal author and political mastermind of the most important event in British political history, really in the last half century, I think plainly he is the most consequential Prime Minister that Britain has had in that time for that reason alone.